Arizona's transition to the Big 12 has been good, but there have been a couple odd things that I don't think anyone quite expected.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you today by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Check it out at FanDuel. All right, now listen. Arizona, we're going to talk a lot about the Arizona in the Big 12, what exactly, we kind of make of it, because again, it's been mostly good. I don't really have any real complaints about it, but there are a couple things that are odd. Moving on, how Arizona can avoid these careless turnovers that continue to plague them, and where exactly you're going to be come NCAA tournament time. I mean, because again, that's a question that I think a lot of people are going to have at this point. But the first thing let's talk about is Big 12 officiating. Now, I got to be very clear about something here. I would take the Big 12 officiating every single day of the week over the Pac-12. Because at the end of the Pac-12 officiating was just awful. It was embarrassing, and honestly, there's really no other way to put it. It was terrible. It was just not something you want to be associated with. Everything, every little cheap foul was called. It was not good. Did not get you ready for the NCAA tournament. So then once you got to the NCAA tournament, you're like, what the heck is this? They're actually they're making us play. So there was that. The Big 12, they are far better at just allowing you to play basketball. And that's obviously a very good thing. But one thing that makes no sense to me at this point is just kind of how the Big 12 officials move and how they go about doing everything. This to me has been an odd part about this transition to the Big 12, in that they will generally let you play, but then they will just start calling ticky-tack fouls almost because it's like, well, it's time. We got to start calling ticky-tack fouls. And it makes no sense. I don't get what where Arizona is with this and how this is happening. And case in point is Tony Padilla. Now, again, we talked about Tony Padilla before, and guess what? We are going to talk about Tony Padilla again. A guy made a really good point on the message boards. He said, if you know who an official is, that official probably is not doing their job because it's probably about them. Tony Padilla is the epitome of that. And again, I talked about it the other day on the show. I've refereed a long time. Again, I'm not certainly not going to like a college level ref or anything like that. But, I've refed in some pretty advanced men's leagues. And so I know some of the mechanics. I know where you're supposed to be, all that stuff. Tony Padilla for the longest time has been the guy that makes calls out of his area and comes in and doesn't even consult. And we'll use the Caleb Love play. That Caleb Love drive for the and one, that was not his call to wave that off. That was not his call, but he made that call anyway. And then, obviously, the far more egregious one is the Trey Townsend call. That is one that cannot happen. Trey Townsend played almost perfect defense again on a BYU player, and there was an official that was 4 feet from him. That official was watching it. He had a better view than Tony Padilla, and he did not call the foul. Tony Padilla comes running in from 40 feet away to make that call, and he's partially obstructed. It's just a bad look. That is not his call to make. And he went ahead and he made that call anyway. That can't happen. That just can't happen because that was the game right there. That, you changed the entire game. That call can't happen. Trey Townsend, as much as we beat him up, played good defense there. I don't think that you can ask for much more. That was a terrible call, and it was the kind of call that changes the game. Like Brad Allis said yesterday, that there's times when you make a call, or there's times when you're like, okay, that's just not the time to make that call. This wasn't one of those situations. This was the situation where there is no time to make that call because that is not a foul, but Padilla does what Padilla does. That's That's just always kind of been the way he is. That's going to always be the way. That's just going to always be how he moves. Those are the kind of plays though that just don't make a ton of sense to me, because you've let these guys play, and then it's like, okay, well, now we've got to go ahead. We've got to go ahead and be like, that's where we've just got to make some calls. I don't get it. And it's been something that's annoyed me more and more as the season goes on. Again, I'll definitely take these officials over Pac-12 officials, because Pac-12 officials were absolutely terrible in every way, shape, and form. But this has been a rough thing for Arizona, as far as it just doesn't make. There's just the consistency is just awful, and that's where it is. But at the end of the day, Arizona's got to move on. It is what it is. You lost this game, and you also have yourself to blame at some point here, and that's something that I don't think that we can really look past. Arizona did not play good basketball in this game. This was not a game that they deserved. This was not a game that they deserved to win. This was a game where they played defensively. They were atrocious. They allowed. BYU is a shooting team. BYU is going to look to get to the bucket, and spread it out, and Arizona couldn't defend them. One thing that I do not understand about Tommy Lloyd is his pick and roll defense. He never blitzes. He never does anything, and that allows teams to get the shots that they want, to get the 3-point shots that they want, to be able to get to the bucket, because there's never a hard hedge. You really never change up anything. And for being a coach that, like I said, Tommy Lloyd's a great coach, but that makes no sense to me why that doesn't happen. And it really, during his entire time here, it hasn't happened. So I don't get that one at all. That one makes no sense to me. And I don't know that anybody can really answer that one, but again, Tommy Lloyd's obviously a very good coach. He's won 83% of his games, or whatever the number is, but those ones are a little bit head scratching for me. Just kind of is what it is. Kind of head scratching. Don't quite get that one. And so that's a big part. Defensively, what exactly are you doing there, and why are you allowing them to get the shots? Also, BYU was getting the shots that they wanted after basically every single timeout, and some of those shots were tough. So I can't sit here and say that I can't really sit here and blame Tommy for a lot of those, because some of those shots that they were making were really, really tough shots. But they were getting the pin downs, they were getting the threes, they were getting a lot of different looks, and that's something that good coaches make. And BYU's obviously got a very, very good coach, and that's something that you got to factor in here as well. But that was a tough loss for Arizona, and that's one that after you beat Baylor, I think that you're really hoping, you're like, can we can we continue to push this one? Can we continue to get back in that 3 seed line? Because as a 4 seed, there are some teams that I don't really want anything to do with. I don't want anything to do with say a let's see here. I don't want really anything to do with, say, an Auburn or a Duke or a team like that. But beggars can't be choosers at this point. Maybe you can still get back onto the 3 line, but that's going to be really difficult at this point. You're going to have to beat Iowa State at Iowa State, and who knows? Maybe you do beat Iowa State at Iowa State, and if that happens, then that's obviously a good look for Arizona. But there is it's right now, it's just it's not great for Arizona. There's no other way to put it. This was a bad loss. This was a loss that you just can't really have occur, but it happened though. It happened, and it was tough. Now, there are some things though about Arizona though that they're also kind of kicking themselves in the foot, and I don't understand why this is still an issue. And we've really got to discuss: is this something that can be fixed? But first, prize picks. Picks. All right, check it out. Here's the deal. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's pretty cool. It's fast, it's easy, and keeps every game exciting. That's the point as well. That is it is fast. And here's how this kind of works. Then this, like for example, if you think that Jason Tatum's going to score more than 29 points and Anthony Davis is going to get more than 12 rebounds, you can do something where you put those together and you can get a pretty nice little payout for that. And download the app today and use code LockedOnCollege to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. That's code LockedOnCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game, my friend. Again, and you got the NCAA tournament here. There's a lot going on, and Prize Picks is taking off. Everybody's using Prize Picks. It's a lot of fun, and there's a reason that people are using it. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. Locked on your team every day. All right, now let's talk about where Arizona is as far as the turnovers. You've got to stop doing the lazy passes, the lazy turnovers. Those are dumb. We need no more of those. Please, please stop doing those. The way they turn the ball over is insane. They go and they're just, and like we talked about a million times, they're all pick sixes. They're all right back the other way for a dunk. I don't understand why this occurs. I don't understand why this continues to occur. But it continues to occur, and it continues to occur basically every single game. It is you're going to lose games. And Arizona lost this game because of that. Again, Tony Padilla sucks. We know that. But at the end of the day, Arizona lost this game because of turnovers. You can't have those occur. And they continue to happen, and they happen with basically everybody. Listen, I love Carter Bryant. Carter Bryant is a great basketball player. He is a he's a great prospect. But right now, Carter is young. Carter does a lot of really strange things that just don't make a ton of sense. And when I say don't make a ton of sense, I mean don't make a ton of sense. The first one that he does is some of his passes are, you just kind of wonder, dude, why did you just throw it to that? Why did you just throw it to the BYU player? Because he's going to go right back down the other court, the other side of the to the court and dunk the ball. And there'll be nobody around really. I mean, there are plays with Carter where they're 5-point swings, and you're just kind of like, what the heck was that? Now, before NIL, generally the rule of thumb was, if you're a first-round pick, you got to go because you can become a millionaire. I think with Carter, I think you got to be really wise about this if you're Carter. I think you've got to really consider coming back for another year, because as good as he is, I think emotionally and physically, I think he could get wrecked in the NBA. He's just not ready for that. He is, he's a young kid. He's got a lot of talent, a ton of talent. But the problem with him, though, is that he is just also young. And you've got to, he just does some things where you're like, what the heck was that? And there's going to be a lot of those. And there are a lot of those. And I think that's something from an Arizona perspective that's kind of frustrating but again, he's a talented guy. You want him to be able to succeed, and there's no reason that he can. But I do believe that he needs to come back, because I do think in the NBA, I do think that he would get eaten alive at this point. The following year, he comes back. I think he'd be a lottery pick. But some of that decision making is obviously something, and also too the ball handling. The ball handling is just not. The ball handling is just not good. If he puts the ball down, he's generally going to lose the ball. He can get better at it. He is a great shooter. He has a great weak side shot blocking instincts. He can do a lot of stuff, but I think the issue still is that he's just really raw and he's really young. And, there's nothing wrong with that. Some guys were meant to be 2-year players, and I think he's the epitome of he was meant to be a 2-year basketball player. Guess what? That's okay. But either way, I do think that he should. I do think that he should come back. I think it would make a lot of sense for him to come back. Now, KJ Lewis is an interesting guy because KJ Lewis is a absolute pit bull. He is a dog on the basketball court. You win basketball games having dudes like KJ Lewis out on the basketball court. But the problem though is that KJ will do 2 to 3 just really silly things basically every single game. And there's no rhyme or reason for them. They just happen. And I think a big frustration on, kind of how this goes about is he fouls 3-point shooters. You've got to stop doing that. Stop fouling 3-point shooters. That makes no sense to foul 3-point shooters. And I got to say that he's probably got 7 or 8 of those on the season where a couple of them are okay, but it's like, okay, after that, he's got a lot of Pelle Larson in him. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because Pelle Larson's a millionaire. Pelle Larson's going to be in the NBA for a long time, but he can do a lot of really good things. And you're like, what the heck was just that? Sorry, I just had something just climb at me. But that makes absolutely no sense. Why he is why he does some of this stuff, but again, his pluses certainly outweigh his negatives, and he is he's a good player. He's a really good player, but it's kind of emblematic of this team to a certain degree that you're like, there's just a lot of stuff out here that just doesn't make a ton of sense. And these guys, they just do some really dumb things. Maybe that'll get a little bit better. We'll see, but I don't know that that's necessarily the case. But Arizona has been the maker of their own problems, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. We're this far in the season. It is a team that I've got a lot of respect for because they play really, really, really hard, but at the same time, they also just do some things where you're just maddening. It's kind of like the kid you have that is a really good kid. He means really well, but you're also kind of like, why did you just do that? And you're like, oh, they're like, oh, I'll get it fixed. And you're like, okay, cool. And then that just never gets fixed. Those are the kind of things that I think just drive people up a wall with this squad. But it's kind of is what it is. When you're Arizona, you've chosen this life. But now, like I said, you got some games that you're probably going to drop. Then you got the Big 12 tournament. This is all about to get real. This is all about to get real, really, really quickly here. And the that's something that you got to keep in mind. This is about to get really, really big. And now moving on to Utah. Then Utah is a game that Arizona should absolutely smack Utah. You're coming in, you're getting them at the absolute. You're getting Utah at the absolute right, or well, Utah's getting Arizona at the absolute wrong time, in my opinion. I think that right now you're kind of like, all right, well, I think you kind of wish if Utah that Arizona had won that game because now you're kind of like, well, this isn't great for us, and it shouldn't be great for them because we're kind of at the point now where Arizona, you got to take care of business. You got to take care of business, and you've got to be able to get some of these wins. If you get some of these wins, then you're in better shape. Utah doesn't really do anything that is super imposing or super scary. As a matter of fact, I think with Arizona, I think you got to feel pretty good that you should be able to take care of that. And what are going to be some of the keys to that victory? And what can you really expect from Caleb Love? But first, FanDuel, my friends. Check out FanDuel. Great stuff going on with FanDuel. Now, the NCAA tournament is here. That is a really, really cool part about all of this with FanDuel is that the NCAA tournament is here. And I think the great thing about it, too, is that here's the deal. You can put down $5 and you get $150 in free plays if that bet hits. That's simple, that easy. That's the great thing about it. That's simple, that easy. And if you watch this team and if you watch and you're like, I think that we could do I think we could do a better job with something, you can get a much better deal. And here's kind of the deal though too with FanDuel, what makes it so exciting. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit fanduel.com to join. That's fanduel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And again, when the games tip, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book app. FanDuel again, and you got college basketball. This is going to be a fun time, I think, for pretty much everybody. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now the keys to victory for Arizona. Caleb Love, continue to do what you're doing. Continue to get to the foul line. Caleb did not have a great defensive performance. I don't think that I'm really breaking any news there. Caleb's got to do better from a defensive perspective. He had been playing really well. That was not a great game for him. But Caleb has got to continue to get to the foul line. You know, I've made this point. We're going to continue to make this point that when he plays like that, he is an absolute monster. Because again, you feel really good about his free throw shooting in big spots. He was huge. You know, a big three, then an and one. He did everything that you needed him to win the game. Again, Arizona just kind of got screwed at the end. But Caleb Love was not the reason. Caleb Love was more than good enough. And I think that you can build on that. He is he's going to be a lightning rod. He's going to be a mercurial player. But I think, and Tommy Lloyd has made the point, there's going to be games where Caleb Love is not going to play well. But you have got to be able to have a team around him where if that does happen, he will, you can still win games. And Arizona has shown that they can do that. And I think that's the exciting part about that is that Arizona has shown that they can win games without Caleb Love. They've just got to be able to. They just got to be able to continue to do it, and they just got to continue. They just got to be able to continue to do it. And if you do it, then I think that you feel pretty good about where everything is. But this team, though, again, they should smoke Utah. They should have everybody's full attention, and you should have I think you should have a really good idea about where Arizona stands. You get that win again. You get to 13-4. And not only do you get to 13-4, you should get to a point where you're like, all right, let's try to win the rest of these games, and just kind of go from there. And I think that's going to be an exciting part about all of that is just being able to see, can you make this one happen? If you can make that one happen, then I think you're in pretty good shape. So, up front, then, Henry Vasar. Got to continue to do Henry Vasar things. Tobe Awaka. Got to continue to do Tobe Awaka things. Bring that girth, bring that physicality, bring that strength, bring all of that stuff. And and I think it will work out okay for itself. I don't, where we're at is, Arizona's still in a decent spot considering where you were when you were 4-5. Again, you dropped a few games now that you probably wish you hadn't dropped, but it is what it is. Losing 3 games in McHale is too much. I don't think that I'm really breaking any news there. You can't drop 3 games at McHale. That just can't happen. But Arizona is also going to have a chance to be able to rectify this situation, and I think they will. This team's grown on me. I can't lie. This team has grown on me. It's far from a perfect team, and if they went out early, I don't think that anybody would be totally surprised. But it's still a team though that I like. I look at and I'm like, there's a lot to like about this team. They try hard. They're physical. They got a coach that I really like, and and they're learning. The Big 12 was always going to be a difficult one in that first year, and I think they've performed admirably. Now, I think the key is, can you continue to grow on this? Can you continue to do that? And I think Arizona, like I said, I think Arizona's going to smack Utah. I think that game's going to be over fairly quickly, and if that game's over fairly quickly, then we're obviously talking, we're moving on then to Iowa State. And could Arizona possibly get that win against Iowa State? Probably not. Hilton Coliseum is a very difficult place to play. I don't expect Arizona to win that game. But, stranger things have happened. I think right now, I think Arizona is the 3rd best team in the Big 12. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that. Houston's better than Arizona, although Arizona did match Houston. And Iowa State is, I think Iowa State's a little bit better. They were a little banged up when they played Arizona. They're healthier now, so I think that they could get that. But tomorrow then, we're going to really start breaking down Utah and what that means. What does Arizona need to do now going forward to get in? Can Arizona still get that 3 seed? I think that's a big question. And I don't think that anybody really has the answer to that. Can you get that 3 seed? If you can get that 3 seed, I think you feel pretty good about things. But, either way, if you're a 3 or a 4 or 5, just kind of stay in there. I don't want to play Duke. And again, like we talked about, I don't want to play Duke. I don't want to play Auburn. I don't want to play, those teams until you absolutely have to. But I think at some stage in the game, you're just going to have to play those teams. And that's probably just going to be the way that it is, as I think it was Walter Cronkite said. But on that note, though, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Locked On, your team every day. It's still awesome to be an Arizona fan. Again, Arizona fans, be better. Don't chant those awful things that were chanted. You don't need to do that. Let's not stoop to that level because, again, at the end of the day, this is still just sports. Just let it go and let's have fun. But we will be back with you tomorrow. You've been listening to the Locked On Wildcat podcast, TTFN, Locked On, your team every day.